You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's talk about Steve Angeli as a player, his background, and then we'll dive into the potential ramifications if and when he decides to commit to Syracuse. So first of all, where's this information coming from? Well, multiple reports are out there by now about Steve Angeli visiting Syracuse, but I believe it was first reported by On3's Steve Wiltfong, all right? So let's talk about Steve Angeli now as a player. He is 6'2", 210 pounds. He's got multiple years of eligibility remaining. He has played sparingly for Notre Dame over the past couple of seasons. He only has 80 career passing attempts, but in those 80 career passing attempts, he has looked really, really strong. In fact, he had a brief cameo appearance in the most recent college football playoff where he did quite well. In his career, he completes well over 70% of his passes, over 11 yards per attempt, and a 10-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. I understand it's only 80 passing attempts, but that is pretty good for only 80 passing attempts. And I am not surprised that Syracuse football at least got a visit from Steve Angeli. And the reason why I'm not surprised by it is because we talked about this at the end of last week. There's a lot of connections between Steve Angeli and Syracuse football. He was offered by the team back in the 2022 high school recruiting cycle. He is a New Jersey kid. And also Angeli's high school coach, in case you all missed that episode, well, he is the brother of Syracuse quarterback coach Nunzio Campanelli. There's a lot of connections between Steve Angeli and Syracuse football, so this is not a surprise that they are at minimum getting a visit. But let's get into the ramifications here. Would he be the starter for Syracuse football, or would he be the backup? I want to hear from you in the comment section below. Or do you think there's going to be a quarterback competition if he decides to commit to Syracuse football? Let's use our noodles, shall we? We got these brains up here. They do a lot of thinking. So let's think for a moment. Let's theorize. Let's hypothesize together. All right? Steve Angeli is coming from Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a big-time program, right? They were just in the college football national championship. They're a big program, Notre Dame. He transferred out of Notre Dame, likely because he was not going to be the starting quarterback there. That is going to probably be C.J. Carr. So let me get this straight as we talk about whether he would come here as a starter or a backup. He's going to leave Notre Dame, where he would have been the backup there, to go to Syracuse and remain the backup? Would he? I don't think so. That doesn't really seem like it would make a lot of sense, right? I mean, unless Notre Dame was just saying, we are not going to pay you a single dime of NIL, and so you better go hit the portal. Fair enough, I guess. But chances are Steve Angeli is going to look for a situation where he can start. And it's interesting because Syracuse, at least on paper and at least from Fran Brown's words, they have a starter. But I don't buy that Steve Angeli would come here to, he's going to be a backup. No way. Absolutely not. He's already done the backup thing for a couple of years at Notre Dame. If he was going to remain a backup, why not just remain at Notre Dame? So that's why I said on the last podcast that I don't think that Syracuse ultimately ends up with Steve Angeli because they have publicly already committed to Rickie Collins. Or so we thought. See, this is fun. In the transfer portal, oftentimes, you got to read the tea leaves. And in the case of Steve Angeli, there's a lot of tea leaves to read. This is very, very interesting. Someone who is looking for a starting job in all likelihood is visiting Syracuse football. It's funny because we talked about also on the last podcast, what type of backup is Syracuse, or not what type of backup, what type of quarterback is Syracuse football looking for in the transfer portal? What type of one? We know they're going to add. We know that. But when they brought in Zach Gibson from Georgia State for a visit, what did I think we most of us, I think we all agreed that if Zach Gibson were to commit to Syracuse football, he's not going to challenge Rickie Collins as the starter. There's no way. I get he's got 600 career passing attempts. That's cool. But there's no way, no how that Zach Gibson would take Rickie Collins' spot. He might take Jakhari Williams' spot, who's the current backup, a redshirt freshman. He's not taking Rickie Collins. Steve Angeli could. In fact, you can probably make the argument to me right now that he is a better quarterback than Rickie Collins. You really think he would come here to be a backup? Even to have a quarterback competition? I don't see it.